Hi, everyone. This is the fourth episode of Pivotal Practices. And today I'm really excited actually about some of the things we're going to be talking about. I don't have a guest today, but I am going to incorporate some yoga today and going over some of the alignment concerning yoga and just giving you a little bit of training with that more towards the other half of the segment. But I wanted to talk today about the chakra system. And over the course of time, I want to train you to be able to understand your energy body so that it can benefit you in your health, also in your mental and emotional wellness, and for you to be able to know how to utilize your energy body and help it ground or help it achieve a calmness, and also to have more energy at times when maybe it's depleted, as well as when certain things are overactive, knowing how to recognize that too. But as I had talked in the first episode and in the second, but more so in the second, the chakras are really powerful energy centers, and they're part of our ethereal body. And the ethereal part of our body is a system of the body. It's just like any other system that we have, but it's not like our skeletal system or our muscular system in the way that it's more energy. It's an energy body that helps to move chi energy, or what we call pranayama, right? Or what we would look at as the actual small energy particles that innervate the auric field, the chakras, and the meridians. So part of one of the first things I wanted to say was, and I know that I mentioned this in the other episode, is that every single one of your joints is also a chakra, but they're not the big chakras that we call the seven main chakras. And there is an extensive more than main system of seven. There's actually 12, but we don't need to get into that, right? Like that goes more down the line as you learn things. We're more concerned with being able to get each chakra learned one at a time so that you don't feel overwhelmed, because each chakra governs a big amount of the body, as well as is ruled by an endocrine gland. So with it, just think about it. This means that my knuckle is a chakra. I have chakras in my carpals, in my elbow, right at my shoulder joint. I'll give you a couple other examples, right? I have chakra in my hip socket, in my knees, right, in my toe joints. So when one of those energy centers becomes blocked, or the fuse, like I like to say, becomes burnt out or overused, then we will know that through inflammatory, right? Inflammation or inflammatory disease. When something is actually not being utilized enough, it actually starts to become more of what we would call like a decaying action, or like almost like there's no energy at all, and it disconnects itself from the rest of the body energetically. So one of the examples I could give to that is when someone has a knee replacement, because it's an important surgery, and even though it might be necessary for the person, it's a violation to the body nonetheless when it's cut open. So from that moment when it's cut, it's actually cutting through, let me see here, we have 6 different chakras when that happens, and it's disrupting the flow of 6 different meridians. So the meridians that flow down through this leg get cut off, and it actually severs itself right at the hip joint, right? Because this unit is one, and it connects to the energy body at the hip joint to the rest of the upper body. So it gets really interesting when you start learning about this stuff. So you start to identify and recognize certain things happening within your body. And over the course of time, you utilize the tools on how to bring balance, how to bring order, how to make sure that those things get rebooted through basically body work. If you are not attuned to Reiki, then you can always see a Reiki practitioner, right? And self-treatment, we learn, and most of my Reiki practitioners know, like I do self Reiki treatment on myself all the time, But it's different when I get on the table and relax my mind fully and allow somebody else to do the practice on me, which allows me to go deeper into parasympathetic mode. And there's bigger results in that. But it is very beneficial to learn Reiki as well, to bring yourself help at times when you can't make it in or throughout the month before your appointment. So what I wanted to start with is just kind of doing a little bit of review if you watch the second one, but going deeper into what are chakras. And I want you to know that kind of like in anatomy, right? We called it anatomy and physiology. I say A and P. There's different verbiage. Like sometimes there's a slight discrepancy or a slight different variation to a medical term. And if you're not in the field, you might not recognize that we're talking about the exact same thing. So one of the examples is the pineal gland, which you'll hear people call the pineal gland or the pineal gland, and you'll hear those two terms and they're interchangeable, right? Sometimes as well, through different resources, there might be just a slight variation on what they're saying might be ruled or governed, but the majority of the information would remain true or the same, okay? Just so that you know that. So out of really what would be my Reiki level 1 manual, I basically just printed a couple pages, and this is just like one of those pictures where you can see that like the chakras come all the way, and we said this from the crown, right? And then all the way down through the center of our body. And it stops at our root, right at our pelvic floor. So at the root chakra, I always want to explain this the best is think of a Pringles can, right? How there's a bottom and there's a lid on top. The crown chakra faces more that direction where chi energy, or we could say healing energy or spiritual energy and universal energy come through the crown. It is the highest vibrational chakra of all 7 chakras. And then each chakra that goes down actually flows at a little bit less of a vibration than the one above it. So from my crown, it's flowing very high at a very high vibration. And when I'm all the way down at my root chakra, at the bottom of my Pringles can, which is like our pelvic floor, it's going to be very slow. It's going to be a lot slower. It's going to be able to take in the same vibration as earth energy, deep grounding energy. And that's why it's able to calm the nervous system, settle people's physiological systems, calm emotions, right? Grounding is a huge resource, which I did go over at the very end of the last episode. Okay. So today, right, talking about chakras, we want to talk about really what does chakra mean? And it means a wheel of light. So they're these beautiful energy centers that carry bright vibration and light in them. And they're smaller than you would think, as far as they're not like this big, right? When my body is only so big. Instead, they're smaller. They're actually what they have said, like the size of more like a quarter. But don't mistake in that for them being weak or small in their strength or vibrations. They are much stronger in vibration than a lot of the other systems and most of the other systems in our body. So I would say pretty much looking at it as it's your connection to the universe, it's your connection to the whole. There's a reason why when there's a full moon or certain things are going on astrologically that we can feel that within our body at times. We can also pick up in from the auric field and the chakras this ability to feel the energy of a room around us. And most of us don't realize that intuition is something that all of us have, but we might ignore it or have never been really trained to be keen or to be sensitive to that vibration of intuition. And so we might be more oblivious, so to speak, of knowing and recognizing that, while other people, their primary gift is in intuition, and they can pick up on all sorts of vibration around them very quickly and read the energy in a room or off of people. I can definitely testify to that. And so it's one of those things where at this point, after doing energy medicine for as long as I have, and meditation and yoga, I don't really go around telling everybody how much I could feel, because sometimes I think that it makes people feel uncomfortable if they would realize it, only for the reason that they can't hide much. And I don't really go around explaining everything that I feel all the time. But the more you practice these things and do these things, I can pick up on all sorts of things from people around me, even when they're not facing me, even when they're turned away from me. I can feel motives, I can feel intentions. Sometimes I can feel first judgments if they don't know me, which it's not something to judge, because remember, people's first thoughts are not always necessarily the best if they don't know you. Sometimes people have jealousy, or they feel weird, or they're trying to figure you out. These are all normal things, right? So we learn that the more we become intuitive, or the more we tune into these things, as much as they help us heal or help us get better, we want to watch our ability to judge others. It comes with a responsibility, right? So until somebody's actually saying something or treating me badly or verbalizing something, I need to not judge the reaction that I feel off of somebody's energy field, because they're just human, and we still have an ego mind and a subconscious mind, or we might have some skaras, right? Those kind of things. So going into the chakra system deeper, so they're known as wheels of light, and chakras are really, and have been studied and been around in all cultures and all countries. This is not something new. I know that sometimes in America, it seems like Reiki is gaining more momentum over the last decade, more than it ever has, but definitely over the last several decades, compared to other countries where it is like a daily part of their life, that even writing their language is a spiritual thing to them. Everything is basically a combination of their whole body, their whole spirit and mind, and that's how they live. So America kind of takes us away from that more. It's definitely different in the way that we're raised up or taught, typically, unless you have parents that were into this and you happen to be subjected to these things, like my son has been. So if you're talking with people who've never understood these things, it's okay if they're going to seem weird or leery, or if this is something new to you, or a concept that you're not quite sure of. That's very normal. Sometimes when we're first learning something, it's normal to have to think through it and know that you want to grasp it or understand it, or be somewhat of a little bit of a skeptic until you get the experience, right? So really, the chakras help steer us through life. And some of the things I talk about is the chakras linger between here, right now, but also carry vibrations of my past. And they also carry some energetic field of also the ability to feel what's going on in the universe, what's happening up in the sky, all of those things. So they're very intelligent and supersede some of our human understanding, I would say. So the evidence of the chakra system dates back 35,000 years, which is a super long time. So it's not a new concept, as I said. And one of the things that's important for the chakra system is to communicate. It's communicating. It's communicating with the body. It's communicating with the mind. It's sending signals. And it's really one of the best ways I can describe it is it's kind of like a computer, right? It's kind of like a computer. It's able to figure out its own algorithms by what's being handed to it from around it. It's able to feel sparked by past things. It's able to, let's say in yoga, if you get in a certain position, you have a teacher who practices more spiritually in postures and kind of unifies your breath with the body, to have people have emotional releases, like all sorts of things can potentially happen within the chakra system. So the more that we learn about our energy body, the more we're going to understand ourselves, and the more we're going to be able to help ourselves and our body, mind, and spirit. So one of the things, it's so funny if you look, and I'll explain it, but it's like smaller in this like little diagram, is I have three little things that when I'm teaching on the chakra system that I explain, right? In the front of the chakra, it's more wider and it has more of an opening, right, in the front. And so one of the best ways that we could describe that is if you think of a funnel, right? If you think of the funnel is really open at the very mouth of it, right? Where it opens up and it's really wide and it's circle. And then it starts to continue to draw back in its shape. And then it gets really small at the back end. So at the back end, that's really where the chakras face the back body. Okay. So here we have like the crown, the root, and then the third eye. We have the heart, solar plexus, sacral, all these chakras that go all the way down. They're more open in the front of my body and they're smaller in the back of my body. Now, why is that? That's because the back of our body is the spiritual channel. It is where the governing meridian and the spiritual body is governed. So it doesn't need to be opened more. It actually takes in a lot more spiritual or universal life force energy. And in the front of the chakras, it's actually more open to the material world, taking in the vibrations of what is going on around us. So there's two different characteristics, right? So with it, you think of a funnel, then I say, then you bring, if you remember, which is so funny because then you start to know someone's age. I always joke around, but back in time, the veggie steamers, right? The things that you used to put veggies in that were metal that had all these little, like what would look like petals. And this is going to fit into the funnel. And that means that the front of the chakra can do this like a flower. It can slowly kind of close itself. It can open to receive more. And then within the funnel and the veggie steamer, we put a little bit of one of those pinwheels that turn. So they also turn. And it has been said, and this I cannot say that I would know for sure. I've never tried to measure it, but it's been said in studies that people above the equator, their chakras actually turn in one specific direction, and human beings that live below the equator turn in an opposite direction, which actually sounds really interesting. It would make a little bit more sense in that way. So one of the other things that we want to talk about is that each chakra ties in with an endocrine gland. So that means that when this chakra is suffering or is not okay, is disrupted, that endocrine gland in the endocrine system is off, which means your hormones will start to have issues, right? And we'll go more into that. So being and remembering in the second episode, just to remind you, your primary in medical books, two systems of the body, to me, I would say three, right? Because they don't put the energy body in medical books, right? You have to almost find it as a side note to the medical field, recognizing it, that we're looking at the nervous system. We're also looking at the endocrine system to maintain homeostasis. And I would include in that also is the energy body. All three of them are a huge part of keeping us in homeostasis, okay? Which means balance in our health. So the fast moving energy that chakras deal with is the universal energy, spiritual energy, meditation, nervous system, like in the mind type energy. And when we're talking about the slow vibrations in the chakra systems, we're talking about our sensory, right? We're talking about our ability to touch, the physical movements of our body, that type of energy, right? Those are the slower portions of the energy. Okay, so hopefully, and remember, you can always pause the video. You can pause and rewind and take notes. You can always come back to it. Don't feel like you have to memorize all this stuff. This is like getting education and learning over the course of time. And at times, I do little pieces of review from other videos so that you're getting the details and they'll stick more over time. So as I said, they're like computers or even like computer chips, right? The chakras. So they're receiving energy, they're processing it, they're transmitting energy, and there's all sorts of energy that they are responsible for. And this can include hereditary energy. This can include cellular energy, karmic energy. This can include what's happening in the universe. This can include consciousness and so many more things. So it is continually this information being sorted, updated, processed. Like this system is working all the time. It does find more rest when we're in sleeping state, but nonetheless, even our third eye is doing a lot of things when we are sleeping, right? So your self-healing practice, which really gets incorporated through the tools that you use. So self-care and self-healing is really one and the same. And this would include getting Reiki treatments or body work, right? This would include learning Reiki and giving yourself treatments. This could include exercising, yoga, pranayama, meditation. This can include you reading a book. This can also be walking in the park, anything where you are taking out time to restore yourself, right? So all those things are very important. And as you learn these tools and you get older, you hopefully learn to take better care of yourself, okay? So remember that each chakra is connected to a major nerve plexus and a glandular center within the endocrine system. Overactivity, as we said, in a chakra can lead to an inflammatory disease or inflammation, and underactivity can basically lead to a degenerative illness. Okay. So the first chakra, so I'm going to show you, right? There's always these Sanskrit basically designs that also mean, right, or have the actual kanji, depending on which language, or something that means the root chakra. And the way that I have always heard it pronounced is Mudalahara. And so Mudalahara is one of the names for the root chakra. Okay. It is associated with the color red. And so sometimes you might notice that if that day or recently you're very like moved to wear red, you're gravitating towards the color red, it usually is a sign that you are feeling very grounded, very like everything is flowing usually better when we put on the color red. Not that that's always true, but it is a color that grounds you. And a lot of times when we're gravitating towards a certain color more, especially if we never really gravitated towards us, it's telling us something, right? It's usually telling us something about the energy body. So mantras, so I can just explain this to you about the root chakra. Mantras, there's specific mantras that we use or chants to balance the chakras. And for the root chakra, it's LAM, which is spelled Lam. Okay. So, if chanting is something that you're not familiar with, that's something that you can utilize later. But one of the ways that you can balance the root chakra is when you're sitting down and you're still and you're meditating, you can actually inwardly chant Lam or you can outwardly chant it, right? And it will start to bring balance to the root chakra. So as I described, the root chakra is really right at the pelvic floor, okay? It's kind of meeting right where they say is more like the peritoneum. It's like really deep in the pelvic floor. And you can typically begin to feel it more the more you learn grounding and the more you practice with it. You become able to be sensitive to that chakra and feel yourself grounding, even energetically in the pelvic floor. Notice and recognize the vibrations changing in the actual area of your body. So the affirmation for this chakra is I stand. And part of the reason for that is it means that you're grounded. It means that you're secure in your ability to be sustained in yourself, to feel confident, to feel whole. And the root chakra is really the basis of keeping our nervous system and putting it back into parasympathetic mode. It's super important. So think of what could potentially be the actual endocrine gland of the root chakra. If you really think about it, if I say to you, well, when it's out of balance is when we're in fight or flight. So instantly we go to adrenals, right? That one's usually the root chakra's endocrine gland is usually pretty obvious. It means that when we're in fight or flight, the adrenal glands are more stressed. And, back in time, people have to remember people weren't living in danger 24 hours a day, right? When you're in danger 24 hours a day, it's one thing to feel the need for the body to go into fight or flight to protect you, but to be prolonged in that state causes disease over time or causes issues in the body to become out of balance where it's moving towards disease. So if you are in a high stress job, if you are in a very high stress relationship that's not healthy, if you're in a high stress situation all the time, this is going to disrupt this chakra, but really disrupt just about everything else in the body and the energy body over time. So it's one thing to have short-term stress. It's another thing to have prolonged amounts of stress. Okay. So it's really important that we learn how to put ourselves back regularly and daily back into parasympathetic mode. Okay. So we also want to talk about what does this chakra actually get governed with and what does it do? So how is it affected? It's also affected when we are having stressors considering several things. This can be linked to our career. This can be linked to family things. It can be linked to our finances or money. It can be linked to our safety. It can also happen through abuse if we're getting divorced, all of those things. So to me, I always make this joke like, well, what else is there? Right? Like, what else is there in life out of those things that wouldn't affect you? So clearly, this chakra is important because it's the very foundation of where we are in life. Okay. So those things disrupt it. It governs all of the lower portions of our body, which is a lot. So what does that include? So this is going to include our legs, our knees, our ankles. It's going to include our feet. It's going to include the very base of the pelvic bowl, okay, as well. And I want you to understand this. There's going to be certain parts of our body that are actually governed by two chakras. One of them might be the primary chakra, and then there might be a secondary connection through another chakra or nearby chakra. But primarily, it's all the lower portion of the body. It does have some connection, absolutely, with the intestines, right? Because that is part of like the lower part of the pelvic bowl. I would definitely say that appendicitis and appendix issues 100% have to do with the root chakra. Okay. So usually people that have that happen, there's been some kind of major stress typically that's been going on. And it's also stands for our blood. So our blood is also ruled in the root chakra. Okay, that's a pretty important part of us. Between the oxygen and blood, that is really the fuel for everything in our body, right? The other thing is, in a secondary way, because the adrenals, what I like to say, are married to the kidneys. So they kind of like sit right on top of your kidneys. They're like a married couple. So whatever's happening that's stressing the adrenals, there's a secondary thing that's going to happen to the kidneys. The kidneys' secondary ruling is by the root chakra, and so is our bladder. Okay. So any big changes like in what we live and careers and our relationships are going to fluctuate this. What we can say is sometimes when we're making a positive change, that's a big change in life, our root chakra starts going through what I call shape shifting, which means it starts changing its processing means and trying to find grounding with all of the new environment and trying to figure out how to balance itself with everything new that's changed in life and that you're taking in. Okay. So one of the biggest things that I ask people are you present in life? If you're always in your head and you're never really able to like engage with somebody in front of you, when people are talking to you, is your mind somewhere else all the time? That would mean you really need to ground more. You need more work done towards the root chakra. You need more self-care. You need more time to be able to really feel comfortable in environments. Okay. And one of the things I could say is, and we talked about this in the last episode, people that are traumatized, people that have been through substantial amounts of trauma are not always grounded. They're more, if you're in PTSD, that's going to disrupt the root chakra when you have one of those episodes. When people are not able to feel, I would say this, how do I say this better? If someone had been abused, they have this mindset going out into the world where they actually start looking like they have to watch out. They're always on alarm with everybody around them. And that's like a side effect of abuse. So that is really a part of their root chakra suffering due to the trauma that they experienced, right? And so over the course of time, that has to be worked on so that their health stays intact. So, what does it have to do with our cells? And so, some of the cells that can get affected is our immune response, right? Inflammation can happen when it's out of order. Our DNA is stored in this chakra, so we can end up having DNA issues when this is off balance for too long. It also affects the regulation of our minerals, right? And the secondary chakra, it's not the primary chakra, but it's the secondary chakra for our sexuality, which means, hopefully, understanding that sexual energy and sex carries a very big responsibility because of STDs and for all sorts of reasons, and having sex with people who actually value you compared to people who don't, right? And what that means is it's a violation to the root chakra if you're going around sleeping with a ton of people. It might feel good in the moment. I talk more about sexuality and how it affects the second chakra in a different episode. But in this chakras can feel violated when we are violating ourselves, right? When we're carelessly doing things. When we have sex with partners, that makes a soul tie. And that means that we then have tethered a piece of our energy body to that person. There's a way to heal that. Sometimes that needs to get healed for us to really feel the breaking of like a bad breakup to feel more whole. But a person can become more erratic in their behavior the more they do it because it's already violating that part of your energy body. And I always say to people, really, it makes sense that the root chakra is secondary for sexuality because you really probably aren't going to sleep with somebody if they don't make you feel safe, if they don't make you feel like they're grounded or have your best interest. It's different for some people. I'm just speaking frankly, if there's a lot of alcohol involved, sometimes people make poorer choices in that way, not realizing due to how much they've had the consequences of the actions they're taking. So I have helped many people who have experienced rape or sexual abuse or trauma. And I always say, don't judge people because some of the people that might be more promiscuous have been traumatized from childhood. And it's really a sign of emotional and sexual immaturity that they haven't learned yet that they can't seek love in that way. Love has to come in a bigger way. And so instead, if they didn't feel like they had or didn't know they didn't get the proper attention and love and care and had an abusive parent, they're trying to seek out love through those means, right? So this is also just to help us learn or to help you gain more insight. So ways to balance the root chakra. So one of my favorite ways is to walk in nature. When you go hiking, when you're in the park, when you're soaking up the sun, all those things help the root chakra balance and help the energy body balance. Grounding meditations as well. And then spending quality time with loved ones, spending quality time with people that are your tribe, right? With your spouse, with your partner, with friends that just are really good to you. When you're with them, you ever notice how it just reboots everything within you? That is super healing for the root chakra. And then usually yoga postures for the root chakra means a practice that's more down towards the earth, or certain yoga poses, what we would call as Virabhadrasana 1, 2, or 3, which is our warrior poses, right? Hip openers. And I would say those are like the main things, just to name several. And then the other thing is, what are signs so I can recognize when my root chakra is out of order? One of those signs is I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling anxious. Those are two really big signs. When I'm having economical poverty or issues with money, again, that's going to affect it. Things that are happening with a health fear or a health or career fear. Another thing is anything bad, like I said, pertaining to family, and then moving to a new job or new home. Okay. So, all right, ready? It's like, take a breath because that's a lot of information to take in, but it's going to help you understand your body more, right? So you can recognize when your knee is hurting or when your ankle is acting up or certain things are happening. It's actually showing a hiccup or a sign of a burnt out fuse or energy center that's emotionally being affected through a stressor, okay, in your life. Hi, everyone. We just kind of moved everything around, and I want to show you some stuff with the yoga practice. So with yoga practice and some of the tools that we're going to learn, I want to go over things so that by the time I actually teach a practice, you're ready for that more. But at the same time, with all the learning, I want to give you tools that you can utilize at home. Okay. So one of the things that you can get is a meditation cushion. Okay. I love this one. It's one of my favorites. And you can use it to put your sit bones while you're seated to the earth in what we call Sukhasana pose. So why would I want this, right? So here I've been sitting or I've been standing and working all day. I'm not really stretched out. And typically when we first come, what I'm seated in is called Sukhasana pose or easy seated pose. You'll notice that our knees, if they're high, are showing me that my hips are tight. Okay. And so if my hips, some people, when they sit down, they're way up here, which would say that their sitting bones and their hips are very tight. When you sit on the meditation cushion, it actually is going to lift my sitting bone and lower my knees and give more ease to my spine. Okay. So hold on. I'm going to put it behind me. So you'll sit with it on the yoga mat, and you'll notice my knees dropped more in line with my hips. Okay, so this is giving my hips more opening. It's easing my lower spine, especially if I'm tight. Usually, my knees are going to be higher when I first start yoga. When I'm done with my practice, your knees will be lower because you have stretched everything out. Now, the way I'm sitting here, you might have heard it when you were in kindergarten, is crisscross applesauce, like I said, or Sukhasana pose. But there's more advanced seating for this, and that would be where we actually tuck one foot under, tuck the other foot under, and you'll notice my knees are dropped down towards the earth. This is very painful for some people who are really tight. This is something that is achieved more when you are someone who stretches more often, is more advanced with yoga. And one of the things that I tell people is almost every time you go to sit in this position, you will likely grab a specific leg first to pull it inward towards the pelvic floor. And you want to switch that up so that you are actually stretching and bringing balance from one side to the next. Don't always just pick the same leg when you go into Sukhasana pose, okay? So meditation cushions to help me when I'm meditating. I can put it up against the wall and even lean my body up against the wall. And one of the things that we learn in yoga too is to draw from the knees just slightly, from the knees, hugging skin to muscle to bone to the pelvic floor. And what you're going to notice is you're going to see me lift a little. Okay. So here I am pulling in from the pelvic floor up to my root chakra, and my whole sternum lifted, my alignment in my spine got better, and then I'm able to sit more with ease. And one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're doing yoga is when a teacher's giving a cue, they think they've got to give 100%. So if I'm giving 100% to hugging in, my face is going to turn red. I'm not going to be breathing good. I'm going to probably start to make a funny face. And so I always say to people, when you pull in about 40 to 50%, a percentage that is sustainable for holding for longer periods of time, which is building endurance in your body. It's building endurance and also your mind-body connection. It's not wearing you out. And instead of being something that's stressful to the body, it becomes more therapeutic. Okay. So meditation cushions are great, and we'll use those over the course of time through the practice. And one of the other things is a bolster. This is probably one of the best things that you could get with practice, and you want a thick one. So there's all sorts of different shapes and sizes, but this is what we call the thick bolster. It's super thick, and it is the biggest ones that you'll see that are as far as yoga bolsters go. And, typically you're going to spend I don't know if nowadays you might see them as expensive as like $60, but you can get them sometimes as cheap as $40. And really with it, it's going to last you like decades. These do not get thinner. They're made very, very well. They stay the same size. I think I've had this one for probably 10 years. Okay. And bolsters can be underrated, right? Yoga has a lot of props that are very beneficial for us. So bolsters can be used to do poses with support, such as frog pose and some other poses, which are extreme hip openers. And some people's knees can't handle that. So then we use a bolster, and I'll go over that some other time. But the one that I want to show you is a pivotal pose for realigning your lumbar spine, your thoracic spine, releasing the chest cavity and cavities in the body, getting your shoulder girdle into better alignment, and your neck. It is a king pose to me in yoga. And part of it is what we call Supta Baddha Konasana, and there's different variations, but you're on your yoga mat and you take the bolster right up to your hip bone. Okay. Whenever you are going back in a yoga pose down to the earth, you want your knees to be bent. You put tremendous strain on the low back when your legs are straight. Okay. So you come with the bolster right up to your hip bone, and then you begin to lean back. Now I want you to notice what happens to my spine. And as I come all the way back, my chest is opening. So here's my chest opening. My shoulders are dropping back. This part of the bolster is realigning the natural curve in my lumbar spine, which is easing my SI joint, right? My sacroiliac joint. And then my arms can come out like wings. Okay. I'm holding the mic, so you're just going to feel proper alignment on the side closest to you. Okay. So with it, as I get used to this, I can actually do cactus arms, which is harder, and I might be more advanced. Some people are so tight in their forearms and their shoulders that when they try to do this, their arms like this, and they can't achieve getting the arm all the way down to the earth. If you're like that, or if doing this is hard for you, that is a sign that you seriously need this pose, and several times a week. This is what we call a restorative yoga pose, which means I can lay in this, and maybe my body, when I first start, if I never did this and my spine's really off, can only tolerate 5 minutes, but I can work up to 10 minutes. I really suggest that you're in the pose more like 10 minutes in a minimum once your body gets used to it. But I can be in this pose up to 20 to 25 minutes. I do not suggest being in it past like 20 to 30, depending on your tolerance for your body, because everything's realigned and you don't want it to get aggravated. Okay. So the 20 minutes is more what we would call advanced yogi in a therapeutic pose. Okay. So when I'm in this, what you'll feel is these little, the best way I can explain it is these tight parts in your chest and your pec minor and your pec major. You'll feel tightness in your intercostals or in your rectus abdominis, and these will begin to open. And sometimes these muscles are or have been so tight. So I'm going to sit up so I can explain it. Sometimes they've been so tight that when you're in the pose, they get tight and they almost feel like they're having a tantrum. And that's right before they make a really big release that is super impactful to your organs being released from tension, as well as resetting the spinal cord. Sometimes you'll even feel vertebrae pop back in place, which those nerves innervate your organs and functions of the body. You do not want bad alignment with your spine as you age. It's not just your spine. It's going to affect your organ function. It's going to affect your nervous system. It's going to affect your health. So with this pose, I suggest keeping your legs straight. There is another variation where you can put blocks under the knees as your feet are together, but most of the time, people never are walking like straight or walking in alignment. And when we're trying to reset the spine, it's better to keep the legs straight, okay? This is also going to reset the femur bone back into its socket as the spine realigns itself. So it's really impactful. So those are two props that I would suggest getting. If picking one over the other, the bolster, always the bolster, because I can even sit on the bolster for meditation, right? Okay, so we're going to just add a meditation today just to wrap up the day and help yourself find a comfortable seated posture. And I'm going to switch my legs. And this can be even when you're in a chair, as long as you're sitting up straight. You can always put a pillow up and down behind your back to help you, right, expand and open the chest. And eyes are going to close. And you're gently going to feel, and my recommendation is, if you can though, sit upon the earth. Remember, you can always pause your phone or the video so you can get in the proper place. So as you're seated upon the earth, you can even be up against a wall seated. Allow yourself to feel your sitting bones relax. Begin to feel the pelvic floor soften. Feel the blessing of your in-breath. The fact that the breath of life is your dearest and oldest friend. The fact that it fuels the body, mind, and spirit. And gently feel yourself as if you're leaning towards this supportive wall behind you, so the head is directly over the spinal cord. Everything's in alignment. Feel the left leg, left glute and sitting bones sink like stone down into the earth, getting heavier and really feeling more ease and stillness. And then softly begin to feel the right sitting bone sinking lower and deeper, and the right leg into the earth as the tissue settles, as the limbs begin to relax more and more. And then gently begin to imagine that you take your inner consciousness, the inner eyes and the inner consciousness deeper, drawing the inner consciousness all the way down, 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 down towards the pelvic floor. And as you feel the pelvic floor, you're going to imagine you see or feel this beautiful red ball of light right in the center of your pelvic floor. And as you inhale, you feel as if all of the skin of the limbs, of the sitting bones, and the pelvic floor, inhale the breath of life all the way up through this part of your body, as if it was inhaling. Taking earth energy and life force energy up from the earth into the limbs, into the root chakra and the pelvic bowl. And as you exhale, all of the pores of the skin and the legs and the limbs and the pelvic bowl, exhale the breath all the way out and back to the earth. This soft, gentle wave of inhale, as if you were inhaling the breath up through the limbs and the pelvic bowl from the earth. And as you exhale that earth energy back out from the pelvic bowl and the limbs, back down to the earth. And with each breath, you feel more at peace, at ease, and this deep inner stillness. And that beautiful red light gets brighter and shines and feels balanced and whole. And you even can feel your tailbone relaxing, easing the entire spinal cord. And you begin to feel deeply connected, deeply rooted, profoundly grounded in your being, in the earth. You are whole. You are more than enough. You are a profound gift. And then softly draw your awareness back to the bones of the limbs, feeling the pelvic bowl, and being conscious of the body, conscious of the toes, the feet, the sensations in the limbs. Then you'll very gently and slowly open your eyes. And just take your time. There's no rush. So this is a second way to ground, to get used to feeling the root chakra. You'll notice again you feel dusted off and more connected to your being, much calmer. You can always rewind and practice again. And just because I want to stay within a good time frame to not make these videos too long, I'm going to have to wrap up for today. It always seems like I can never cover all that I want to, but at least we're getting ahead. And I just want to let you know that this is really something where we're doing this. I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart. There's never any pressure. There's never anything that you need to do. you can utilize these services for free. Okay. But if for some reason, the more you watch these free resources are impacting your life and you just want to donate money to support, right, the recording that we have to get charged for the podcast and for the time with the sessions, and also just to bring more free resources to people, then the best way to do so is through Venmo. And you can donate through Venmo, and you will look it up, and really the address is at Pivotal Practices. And I would ask that when you type in the message to why you're sending it, I would love you to just put episodes, like all episodes 1, 2, 3, like whatever episodes have been so impactful to you that they're changing your life, so that I also know and can recognize what resources are really helping people. And if that's the best way that you can do that, that would be wonderful. But again, there's never any pressure, right? Like no matter what, we're going to give these resources out. But if you want to be a part of and donating to being a part of how we're getting this out, then you can do so. The last thing I want to say is thank you. Thank you so much for your time and for listening. And don't underestimate all that you're learning. It's going to have big impacts for you, and the learning is going to be progressive. So continue to speak life into yourself and into others, and be positive. Have a beautiful, blessed day. Take good care.